It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That was an instrumental from one of the best new guitarists out there, Dario Lorina. He has a new CD out, a solo disc called Grip Tribulation. And as you know, Dario's been playing with Zakk Wylde, and Dario was on the show about 11 years ago, and I want to welcome him back to the Classic Metal Show. So welcome back to the Classic Metal Show, Dario. How are you, man?
I'm very well, and thank you for having me again, Neely. It's been a crazy 11 years.
It has been a crazy 11 years. Well, Dario, I've been kind of following your career a little bit, and it is pretty amazing that someone that started so early in the business and worked with people of a name, that had a name already in the business, that 16 years old, you started working with Janie Lane, which I kind of credit Janie for kind of, giving you the first spotlight in your career. And then
absolutely.
And then you went on to work with Lizzie Borden, and obviously you're working now with Zakk Wylde, and it's been a pretty good ride for you.
It's been an amazing journey.
Absolutely. Well, Dario, I gotta ask you here. I've been listening to your new disc here called Grip Tribulations, and as a guitarist yourself, and I am not a guitarist, believe me, I do not have even 1/10 of the talent that you have, but you have this is your second solo release, and this, of course, is a instrumental. And I got to ask you, because I have no clue about this at all, and I'm only asking this because I really don't know. How is it that you can come up with 10 separate tracks and actually have a title for them and have them all be distinctly different?
That's a good question. I think, that just happens during the process of while you're creating. Like the foundation of the song is written as if I were to sing over it or somebody's going to sing over it. So it's a structured song in that sense. And then, it's instrumental. So I try to have a chorus melody, and the chorus happens a few times in the song. So I know those seconds in the songs are taken care of. And then where a verse would be, where somebody would be singing, I would just try to come up with a cool guitar solo. So you just, you lock in a room for a little bit, and that's what you come up with. The
Right.
Names are always the trickiest things because there's no lyrics to go along with it. So, sometimes you just think of something when you create an Pro Tools session, like, what would this sound cool? Oh, that sounds cool. Okay. And that either stays or you change it later on because you're like, that was ridiculous. But, they usually stick and hopefully come out pretty cool.
Right. Well, I got to ask you, from a creative standpoint as a guitarist, how do you just sit there and go, I want to create a new song and I want it to be this? How do you name an instrumental? Give me an example of how you name an instrumental.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. You just kind of come up with something. Maybe it's the vibe of the song, or a video game I'm playing at the moment, or something I was reading about. I don't know. You just kind of come up with something that I think relates more to the vibe of the song mostly.
Right. Well, obviously songs that have lyrics to them, they, obviously there's a line in a song or whatever that kind of titles the song, but I would think that'd be a little more difficult with instrumental release. Give me an example. I'll throw you out an example here. You have a track on this new disc called Heart of Night. So what were you thinking at that point?
So, to me, that song is very like movie soundtrack like, and there's an effect that happens twice in the song where you can hear a heartbeat, and that's actually my heartbeat that I was just experimenting, and I went to CVS and bought a stethoscope thinking that I could put the stethoscope on my heart and put the two little earpieces on a condenser microphone, and I was thinking that it would pick it up, which that didn't happen. So there was no signal whatsoever coming. So I had to check my heartbeat and make sure I was still beating. But I ended up using an app I found on the iPhone, and I recorded my heartbeat, and I put that in the song because I just felt like it it fit the dramatic, emotional vibe of the song. So Heart of Night is that's kind of how I came up with that, because it's my heartbeat, and it's dark, moody song.
Sure. Well, listening to your songs here, obviously, they're complete soundtracks. Guitar, bass, drum, whatever. When you listen back to any of these songs, do you ever think to yourself, if I could find a great lyricist or maybe a singer who could add lyrics to this song, that would be cool because it would take on a whole different vibe? Or are you so entrenched with your instrumental that you go, this stands as it is?
Well, to me, as the creator of the songs, I feel like it stands as it is. I mean, my next album, I plan to sing myself, which will be lyrics. But I always had a goal of doing 2 instrumental albums, and I'm very grateful to have done them with Shrapnel Records, who I was definitely a fan of as a guitar player. With so many guys in there that I had looked up to. So, these 2, I was focusing on doing instrumental music.
Right. Well, let me ask you something about your career. Obviously, you started off very young at 16 years old, where you weren't able to, even really weren't allowed to be in the clubs that you might have been playing, and you had to be supervised and whatnot. But once you became an adult, you could go out there and play along with, the various people that you've played with. How have you kept yourself out of the trappings of rock and roll, be it booze or drugs or, getting yourself in trouble? Because in all the time that I've been aware of you, I've not known or heard of you getting into any kind of trouble whatsoever. That is, getting into fights in a club or getting arrested for any reason or being, whatnot. And those seem to be the trappings of the rock and roll lifestyle. How have you avoided that, and what is your strength to stay away from that?
Yeah, drugs were never my thing. Even when you're in high school and people are starting to experiment or whatever, I was just never, it was never my thing at all. So I was always focused on playing guitar, and that's all I really did. And then when I got out there on the road, I was focused on, trying to, do the best that I could. So I didn't want anything to interfere with that. So, I like to have a few drinks, but I'm not, I don't get out of control, and that's about it. That's where I draw the line. So that was just never part of me. So I never really had an issue as far as like, oh man, I'm having trouble or I'm having any temptations. It was just nothing that really occupied my mind,
Right. Well, has it ever been I'm sure it's been offered to you to, hey, Dario, try some of this. And you go, no way, man, I don't do that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, in a rock and roll world, things are out there, and it's either you can partake in them or you can not partake in them. So, if it's there if you want it, it's there if you don't want it. So, yeah, it was just something I wanted to get involved with.
Right, absolutely. Very cool. Well, tell us a little bit about the process of writing and performing this new release. And, obviously you have some very cool guests who worked with you on this. So give us a little highlights of recording this new disc.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as writing, I was writing it, Black Label was on the road for the most part of these last 3 years. So I was writing it in between, when we had some breaks here and there. Actually, the song Hollowing, I was started in a hotel room in Switzerland, I think. But yeah, I mean, I was just writing it in between downtime, and then I recorded it in the same way, when we had a short little break. But when I write, I usually I demo out all the songs, and then in my Pro Tools, and I get the riffs and arrangements down, and then I get together with my drummer, who's been my good friend since high school, who's a phenomenal drummer, Dan Conway, and then we kind of suss some things out, and he might say, let's extend this part, or let me put this over that, or whatever. So. And from there, we went in and recorded, like the foundations of the songs, and then I brought the songs back to my home studio, and I sat with each one and came up with solos for all the different parts. And I had JD, who plays with me in Black Label. He played bass on the majority of the album, And he has a couple bass solos on there on the song Same Dice and Perigee. Ripping. I also had my friend Martin Anderson, who I played with, and Lizzie Borden, who played on the majority of my first record. He played on a couple songs on the new one. And my drummer, Dan Conway, he played on the whole thing, except for the song Waves of Nostalgia, which is Jeff Fab, who also plays with me in Black Label. And that song was a riff that we would just jam like at sound checks when we were on the road, that him and I would jam, or me and JD or us three or whatever, we would just jam on this riff. And so when it came time and the song was complete, I was like, Jeff's going to play on it, because it was kind of the beginning of it all. And then on the song 250, I had Phil from Motorhead pretty much go back and forth with me through the whole song, guitar solos, which came about because, we had talked about doing something together when my first album was in the making. But, with touring, musicians' schedules can be all over the place, so that wasn't able to happen. But on this second one, the stars aligned and we were able to make it all happen. So, he ripped on it. His tone's killer. And his son engineered the whole thing over at a studio in Wales for that song, for all of Phil's solos. So it came out really great.
Excellent. Well, even since you've been in the business, the whole record industry, not that there really is one anymore, but it's changed dramatically. So what is the inspiration for you to actually put out a full-length CD? Because as I'm sure you're well aware that, CDs really don't sell much these days, and music can be listened to via Spotify or Pandora, and selling music is kind of like something, unfortunately, is from the past. So what motivates you to release a complete disc?
Yeah, I think it's cool to have something physical. I think there's a lot of people that, feel the same way. I know CDs definitely aren't the same as they were, but, it becomes something that's just like air music online, and you put it on a CD and it's something physical. And to me, I like having something to hold and open up and look at or whatever. But, as far as, I like to write to me, like writing an album is like creating a painting, and when it's done, you look at it and go, okay, it's done. So to me, that's what a whole record is, between the artwork and the making each song and then how everything flows. And then when it's all done and you have a CD, it's like, this is my canvas that was blank, and now it's complete. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. Well, you were obviously playing with Zakk Wylde, who just recently got tapped again by Ozzy to go out on the road with him. And what are your thoughts on Zakk playing with Ozzy? That kind of takes away from your chances to go out on the road a little bit. So what are your thoughts?
Oh, I think it's phenomenal. As a fan, I think it's incredible. And, I got to see Zakk play some songs with Ozzy when we played at Ozfest in Japan, this last Ozfest over there, which was, awesome to watch. And I can't wait to see, to try to make it to one of these shows coming up. As far as Black Label will go back out when it's time to go back out. And in the meantime, I'll be doing some of my solo stuff. So it's all good, man.
Excellent. Well, Dario, I want to play a little bit of an audio here for you because I want to show you how prophetic you were at 16 years old.
What is this, a little clip from the interview?
Yeah, it's a little clip. I'm going to show you how prophetic you were at 16 years old to be playing with Zakk Wylde today.
All right, let's hear it.
Now, you did mention Dokken, you mentioned some Van Halen. Who are some of your more favorite bands, people that you like to emulate or look up to? You mentioned Janie there, but who else are some of your biggest influences, and who do you look up to?
Some of my influences, Paul Gilbert. I love his style of playing. I love how he incorporates the bluesy style of playing with the metal. And Randy Rhoads, definitely. George Lynch and Zakk Wylde. Those four guys are very huge influences on me.
What do you think?
That's crazy, and it's very weird to listen to. I must be from Boston or something. That's absolutely, it's weird to hear myself talk.
Well, you mentioned Zakk Wylde at 16 years old, and here you are playing with him. Did that just blow your mind when you were invited to join Zach's band?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's been nothing but an amazing time. So I'm definitely grateful. And, like I said, the journey's been awesome.
Sure. Absolutely. So, what is in the future for Dario Lorina? Obviously, playing with Zach is a big deal, and releasing your second solo release is a big deal, and getting the notoriety in the business is a pretty big deal. So, you're not even 30 yet. So, where do you see your career going?
Well, like we've been talking about the journey, I just, we'll see what happens as it comes, day by day. It's just, everything's always evolving and you're always moving forward. I'm sure I'll have another solo record, which is, go back out with Black Label. And those are the two things on the horizon at the moment.
Excellent. Well, I got to ask you, Dario, you're one of the very first young guitarists that I was made aware of at such an early age. I mean, the guitar heroes that I grew up with obviously were like a Jimi Hendrix or a Jimmy Page or Eddie Van Halen and whatnot. But these guys were all in their, they were young adults by the time we heard about them. And you kind of broke that mold, being exposed at 16 years old. And with the rise of popular outlets like YouTube, a lot of young talent is being displayed on YouTube, and I'm sure that you probably have seen a lot of young talent where some kids, and I call them kids because they're like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old out there either ripping on guitar, they're playing drums like John Bonham. I'm sure you're aware of the young drummer. His name is Avery Molick. He does a lot of metal stuff. Have you seen his videos?
Okay, I'll check him out. Maybe I have in passing. I just
he plays like Metallica and he plays Van Halen. He just plays all that heavy stuff.
Yeah, I might have.
Yeah. So what would you, as someone who I consider in that whole genre or that whole I don't even know what you want to call it, that grouping, how is it that you younger players excelled so quickly at your craft? What do you attribute that to?
Xbox.
Really? Go ahead.
No. I don't know. I think video games can be pretty good for your focus, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the the internet and having all those outlets to be able to go to and learn from, as far as like YouTube or Guitar Tab websites, or people giving lessons or quick little Instagram clips that link to somebody's lesson that they're teaching in a certain style. So maybe it has a lot to do with that.
Right. And I guess another thing that I'm kind of surprised or impressed with, and I'm sure it's obviously related to the parents, but these kids are not playing, the modern stuff so much. They're playing the classic stuff. They're playing the AC/DCs and the Led Zeppelins and the Van Halens and the Metallicas and the Megadeths. They're playing the stuff that was probably at its peak 30 plus years ago. And you were no different. Yeah. I mean, you were playing with Janie Lane of Warrant, of all things, and you praised that guy up and down.
Yeah.
So how was that an influence for you? Where did that influence think, at such a young age, hey, I want to play Warrant tunes? Was it a parental thing, or did you pick that up on your own, or where did you first hear that?
Well, I mean, I'm sure, some of the influence as far as like the older music definitely comes from parents in general, but the guitar playing was different back then, as far as, it was guitar driven, in a lot of areas. So that, for me, that was an outlet to play the style of guitar playing that I loved to play.
Well, how did you find that, though? I mean, where did you decide this is the style I like, and I want to discover a Warrant or a George Lynch from Dokken or whatever? Where did you hear that as a youngster?
Well, I mean, when I was real young, I'd be driving with my dad and pulling tapes out of his glove box. So that's probably where I was, really first introduced to it, pulling Van Halen 1 out and stuff like that. And then just, you know, and then as the internet kind of grew, you're discovering more and more, and then you can find George Lynch from different eras playing, you know, different solos or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it definitely starts with the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Now, as of today, you've been doing this for, you know, over a decade now, and you are from the East Coast, the Northeast Coast. Where do you reside now, and how do your parents view your career?
I live in Vegas, which is where I'm talking to you from right now. My parents love it. Yeah, I mean, you know, proud parents, they love it.
Excellent. Good stuff. All right. Well, do you have any words of wisdom to give the young prodigies out there who, you know, are hope to have some kind of a career out there? Because in this day and age, you know, the big deal record labels are gone. You know, most people are self-made if they make it at all, because they do it via social media, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is. Because there's so much competition and everybody's in the game now. And, you know, it's very difficult to stand out away from the crowd. So what would you, in your experience in the last decade or so, give to young people who hope to, quote unquote, make it?
The best advice I could give is play from your heart, you know, carve your own path, and just never give up.
Excellent. Well, good stuff, Dario. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us here on the Classic Metal Show again. Don't be so long in coming back to us. The new CD is called what, Dario?
Death Grip Tribulations.
And what's behind the name of that CD title?
I was actually out on the road with Zach on this last Book of Shadows 2 tour we did, which Book of Shadows 2 was his follow-up to his solo album, Book of Shadows. So we were out there this past summer, or last summer, and my record was complete, and we were trying to come up with some names, and I was going back and forth with my label and, you know, different album cover ideas, and I was talking with Zach, and, you know, there was a picture of, like, close up in my hands, which was the picture, which is something similar to what ended up as the album cover. And Zach came up with this title, Death Grip Tribulations, and everything just fits so perfectly. So that's how that title came about.
Excellent. Good stuff. And, of course, Mike Varney is a big supporter of yours, and he's happy to have you on his label.
I'm happy to be on it. Yeah, Mike's great. I've known him just probably the same amount of time, just when I first started playing with Janie. So it's been a while. Excellent.
Well, good stuff. Well, you know, I wish you continued success in your career. I've never met you, but you know, I have followed your career, and as someone who's a little bit of a senior to you, I'm very proud of what you've accomplished.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, man. Well, anything else you want to tell the Classic Metal Show listeners?
Thanks for listening, and you can check me out. You can go to my site, DarioLorina.com, and you can get everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, all that from there. So, yeah, thanks for having me again.
Perfect. All right, Dario. Well, as a tradition here, we always let the artist pick a closing track from their latest release. So we played 250 to start the interview. So what do you think we should play, and maybe give us a story about it?
Okay, cool. 250 was actually the one I was going to say. So let's do Echoes of a Stone Heart, which is the second song on the CD.
Okay, what's the story behind that?
It's instrumental, so there's not much of a story other than nice melody and fun guitar playing.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, go out there and pick up the latest release from Dario Lorina, amazing guitar guy. he's really something to listen to. It's a great instrumental CD, and the name of the disc again is called Death Grip Tribulations. So here it is. This is called Echoes of a Stone Heart, exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.